Hello and welcome back to yet another edition of Kevin Pollak's Chat Show. As always, I am Chat Show. We have a pretty amazing guest today. I'm not going to try to impress you because that's going to take place as the show unfolds. But I'm floating on air. I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to lie to you. Just got back from Philadelphia, where I was doing some of the stand-up comedy. You know, back to the roots. And I want to thank the folks from Philadelphia. I had an awfully good time there. And also congratulate you, Philadelphia Eagle fans. You pulled off a 1-point victory over Jacksonville in preseason action. Way to utilize the dog killer. The whole country's rooting for you, by the way. You and your fucking dog killer. Yeah. No, I can't imagine what it's like, actually, to be born and raised in a town or an area and root for your team, and then they hire a dog killer. What is that? I don't even know. I tried to ask people there, and nobody wanted to talk about it. Yeah. They're not real happy about it. One of my, did I mention the dog killer? One of my favorite moments in my trip to Philadelphia was, first of all, normally morning radio is a pain in the ass when you do the publicity for the tour dates. But this band, Jet, played live, and they couldn't have been greater fellas. They got a new CD that just dropped, as they say in the music business. It's called Shocker Rock, and hold on to your, there we go, much better. Hold on to your ball sack, fellas. It's crazy. That's how good it is. I was really impressed. They were from Australia. That whole down under area frightens me, but there wasn't a dingo in the group, and I was happy to see it. Also, we have a new friend of the show. This people calling up, and you know, the word is, as the word spreads. What did I do with my little prop here? We have a new friend to the show. This fabulous T-shirt company. If you're like me and you like to wear the goofy tees, be they whatever. Old television show or cartoon character that is being represented. So these guys called up. They heard I was about to release a live stand-up CD called What Are the Chances? And they put together this T-shirt, and they sent a bunch of them. And the live CD doesn't, as they say, drop. That's right. That's me at the airport screaming at Jason Antoon, what are the chances? Well, these will come out when the live CD comes out. We just sent it over to the fabulous freaks at iTunes, which means it still won't be available for a month. I think that's how it works. But I want to thank the folks at Donkey Tees. That's the name of the company. If you go to thedonkeytee.com and you whatever you order, your whole order, 20% off just by mentioning the code CHAT. Not just one of these annoying shirts. All the shirts that they have, as many as you want to put in that order, you're going to get 20% off. And I just think that's fantastic. People like that, reaching out to the show and showing a little love and also trying to make a buck off the back. I like that. Wait. The intro music, is it still Fallen Stars? Yeah, of course it is. I knew that. They're the latest winner of the contest to write the opening theme, so don't forget, and just send in your submission to contest@kevinpollakschatshow.com. That's the new email address, contest@kevinpollakschatshow.com. Yeah, I won't even tell you what it used to be because I don't want to confuse you. So any music submissions and also any Larry King games, as always, we have a little intermission. We're going to show some of your submissions. You put together like a 30-second clip of you doing Larry King game. You send it into the YouTube channel, the Capo345. Great story behind that name. Don't have the time. The story's not that good. And we'll share it with you. And don't forget to include your address, please. I always forget to mention this, and then they yell at me afterwards. That way we can send you the prizes. Like, for example, today we have a Larry King game submission. This is the existing live stand-up CD, a little off the top, and that's coming your way to @WildWannabe, because that's a name. Larry King game. Bad Larry King impression. Reveal something about yourself and then go to the phones. Name of the phone, name of the city. Funny sounding if possible. Here we go. At Wild Wannabe. My face looks like this because I had dog jowls implanted after the war. Head Cheese, Montana. Are you there? Now, at Wild Wannabe, while that made me laugh, Head Cheese, Montana, not a place. You son of a bitch. You tried to slip in a little funny city. That doesn't work that way, see? But it made me laugh, so I thought, do I edit this guy? Do I come up with a real existing funny named place in Montana? No, I'm going to do his and I'm going to yell at him, and that's what just happened, so enjoy that, fuckface. But congratulations to you, at Wannabe. You know what, at Wild Wannabe, send us your damn mailing address so we can ship off one of these CDs. And again, if you don't like it, it's $4 on eBay. I sell them for 20. That may be the majority of the business. Yeah, I think I got through it. Other than to thank Josh Sneed, who's the one that reached out for the whole T-shirt thing. Thank him for that. We are about as excited as we could be. You know, we've done now about 37 interviews. This is our 21st week, and we used to do 2 guests, and then I realized that was crazy. So, but we've got like 36, 37 or so under the belt, and we've had some biggies. Academy Award winner was in there. Got another one of those coming up. But we haven't stumbled across a person of this particular ilk and talent in the category, because I'm not sure there's many people in this category. My guest today has sort of initially scratched and crawled to a place called network television. And then, while there, he seemed to have failed with his first attempt at a network television show. The damn thing got canceled. And then the viewers said, well, fuck that. And they ran the show on another network, and they also released DVDs, and as well as this ridiculous outcry from the fan base. And they brought this thing back, I believe, from death. We'll find out here in a second. Then the thing got canceled, I think, a second time. Well, now it is the juggernaut known as Family Guy, and please welcome my guest, Seth MacFarlane. Did I get any of that right?
That was all just right on the money.
Well, welcome, first of all.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming across town. What neck of the woods? You're in the Beverly Hills, the hills of Beverly?
Yeah, it wasn't far. It was about 10 minutes. Like right up the street.
Nothing.
Right?
Yeah. And we have booze being flown in from Jamaica.
Oh my God, it's going to be that kind of interview.
Yeah. It's going to. We like to do things slightly differently. Now, my team of monkeys who work around the clock on this unearthed about, I don't know, 30, 40 pages in your dossier.
Yeah.
And yet I still didn't find any crimes against humanity. And that's really what I was looking for.
It's kind of what a boring life I've led, huh?
Yeah, nothing really of note. But I do want to start.
Not one rape.
Yeah, that's it. It lacks the whole rapey angle.
Lacks spice, huh? Yeah.
Yes. First of all, I don't know how many people know how small the town was that you actually hail from. What are we talking about? What is the citizenship?
It was pretty small. It was, they say when I was there, they used to say it was about 1,000 people, but that I think I saw about maybe 200 of them.
Right.
And beyond that, I don't know where the rest of them were hiding. But it was very, very small.
Yeah.
It was this little kind of little house on the prairie kind of thing where you get like 8 people at church services and whatnot. It's just tiny.
Yeah.
So you can't rent porn at the video store because you know the guy behind the counter, and it's just it's
right.
It's
interesting that was the problem you had.
Yeah.
Now, how old were you before you actually got out of the village that you were raised in?
Gosh. Well, I was.
Did you take any trips to New York? Because you're in Connecticut.
Yeah. We took the occasional trip to New York, the occasional trip to Cape Cod,
right.
And we tried taking a family vacation down south at one point. My mother had a meltdown, so we had to turn around and come back up. And I didn't really get out of that town until I went to college.
Right.
which was in Rhode Island, and Providence was the city.
Yeah.
I went to college in, which was to me just a huge metropolis.
A mecca.
Yeah. It was just an intimidating place. So and of course I got to L.A. and I still won't drive on a freeway without one of those navigator things because I'm just terrified of getting lost.
Yeah. So that small town thing stays with you. There's no getting that out of your DNA.
No, the fear it hangs around.
Yeah. But maybe because the environment. I mean, I'm trying to pinpoint when I was researching, and some of the other guests I've spoken to about coming from this sort of upbringing. There's like a comfort zone that you're raised in that gives you a sense of safety. Quite frankly.
Yeah.
And that's not really offered in any area that would call itself a city.
No. I mean, for me, I grew up in the woods. Basically, my father bought. There was a log cabin that he built that I was born in. And,
seriously.
Then the next 15 years were a series of him getting tired of one house and then building another one and then getting tired of that and moving on.
Wow.
He bought like a tract of land that was completely untouched. It was just all wilderness.
Nice.
When I was about the 5th grade, and he had for years collected colonial tools, about 200 years old, and they'd been hanging all over the walls of our home. He decided he wanted to basically build a house like they did 200 years ago. So he cleared out all this woodland on his own and built this damn thing. It's like 4 stories.
Wow.
Using all antique tools. No nails, all wooden pegs. He had an old-fashioned house raising with the guys pulling up the frame, and so it was as far from any kind of a city upbringing as you can possibly imagine.
And how old were you when all this was?
I think it was about 12.
So this is just an image that stays with you, I would think, for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And no getting around it, really.
Look at all the beverages. My God, Kevin, can I get a salad?
As a matter of fact, you can. We actually have a salad for you.
It's just great. Everything I could possibly need.
Yeah, well, this is what we call the triple threat, or the trifecta.
Yeah.
And depending on how you want to feel,
exactly.
we've got
it's all
covered.
here.
Yeah. Well, so from that unbelievably idyllic setting, is there a rich sort of comedic sense of humor that runs through the family? Is it where does that? How does that start? Because for me, when people ask, nobody in my family was funny, and I mean nobody, until I met a couple of crazy uncles.
Yeah.
On the outer.
It's almost better if I kind of regret that I had a good upbringing because it would be a hell of a lot easier to write comedy
if we'd suffered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. My parents both had very, very, just dark senses of humor. There's really nothing that I can say that will offend my mother. Literally nothing at all.
Oh, that's incredible.
You use the word cunt in conversation, and she just won't even look up from what she's doing.
That's pretty great.
And
I don't know that there are many who can boast such a thing, especially from a small town.
Yeah,
these things go well together.
Yeah. But it's in a way it's kind of they did everything right. They supported what I wanted to do. They were very progressive folks. They handled everything properly. As parents, and it makes it a hell of a lot more difficult to be funny.
Yeah,
just got to work that much harder because they were so damn good.
Yeah, and were there movies that you were seeing that were
fucking salad? It's actually a salad.
While we're breaking the fourth wall as many times as possible, can we ask the volume be turned down out there?
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you get me Rita Hayworth, Kevin?
Stay here long enough. She may not be as fresh as that salad, but she will still be tasty. Now, here's the thing. Hey, now. All right, so from that, your inspiration for a sick sense of humor seems to come right there from the breast of Mama and shoulder of Papa. But what are you seeing on TV and in the movies that is catching your eye in terms of influence or from a young age?
When I was a kid.
Yeah.
My tastes were not particularly those of what was being targeted at my age group. I loved Woody Allen. I loved Jackie Gleason.
Yeah.
You know, I liked kind of more classic comedy. I liked Mel Brooks, Monty Python.
Yeah.
There wasn't a whole lot that was on television. You know, I mean, I watched Family Ties and The Cosby Show like the rest of America, but they weren't exactly things that were.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't saying, boy, when I grow up, I want to do that.
No.
You know,
Yeah.
I want to.
It was the
What's
Woody Allen.
my Mallory? You know, what can I create that is my Mallory? It wasn't like that.
No, I'm afraid to say you still haven't got there.
No, not at all.
All right, so maybe then when you go off to college, as so many people do at that age, you start to find like minds in terms of the sixth sense of humor that you picked up at home, and you're sharing it. And as I think throughout life, we sort of collect our friends through a similar sense of humor. That seems to be.
Yeah. That's I would agree with that. You know, it's you like the same things, you laugh at the same things. Those are the people you want to hang out with.
Yeah. So you found some other sick freaks.
Yes, plenty of them. Yeah,
at RISD.
Yep.
RISD, I believe.
Yep. Went to an art school.
Nice.
Was an animation major.
Right. And you were also at the precipice of maybe becoming a Disney drone.
Yeah.
When you decided to make a left and go.
Yeah, I was, Disney was having their, resurgence of popularity.
Right.
And, their second golden age with, Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin and whatnot. And that was what everybody wanted to do. That was what we all were kind of striving for. And then The Simpsons came along and just completely rewrote the rule book on not just animation, but, television comedy in general, in a lot of ways. And I thought, well, that looks a little bit more fun. And the idea of having actual control over content, it was kind of appealing. It hadn't occurred to me, which is kind of weird because I liked writing and I was doing a little bit of stand-up and, I was kind of into that thing, but it just didn't occur to me that might be a fun thing from an animation standpoint. So it
wasn't much of an option before The Simpsons either. So
No.
there's no reason it would have occurred. But so to be inspired by that, and also I was reading that you had said before that the style of animation on the show as well had sort of opened itself up to doing, the type of comedy that show does and that your show does.
Well, yeah, I mean, they rewrote. I mean, limited animation had always existed, in one form or other. I mean, the Flintstones and the Jetsons and whatnot, and Scooby-Doo. I mean, Hanna-Barbera had pioneered this style of limited animation that didn't require the full 24 frames per second. And then The Simpsons, however, came along and made it actually funny. If you watch the Flintstones, if you see a slapstick gag, there's the camera shake and there's the big, effect of the, starburst that goes out underneath them and the timpani whack and, it's just kind of overplayed.
Yeah.
And, it is what it is, but it doesn't really make you laugh. And suddenly here was animated slapstick that was, these characters were being treated like three-dimensional objects. When somebody would fall through a table, it played, real.
Almost in real time.
Yeah. It played like if you're watching the gas station scene from Mad Mad World, and it was just new. And I remember sitting in the camera room in college, experimenting with timing and having a character hit another character and at different speeds and just seeing what was funniest. Because there was they were the only ones doing that, and I was just sort of trying to figure out what are they doing that's different here, and why is this so damn funny?
But now, was that what you just described? Was that actually being taught, or were you sort of researching it on your own?
I was kind of researching.
When no one was looking.
Basically, yeah.
I mean, what were you supposed to be studying?
Well, I mean, what they did at RISD was they taught you every style. They taught you drawn animation, they taught you claymation, they taught you cutout animation, and really it was up to you to kind of experiment and and most of what was being done in that department was very art oriented animation, the kind of thing that was sort of abstract and I was just interested in just making people laugh. So I was again would sit in that room and just by trial and error try and figure out what it was they were doing that was making that thing so funny.
So you did a little research on your own.
Yeah, a little.
You were inspired.
Yeah,
and you were. I like that. That's. Well, see, to me, those are the turning points in one's sort of creative life, where you're like taking the reins of your future without even realizing it. You know, I was studying Bill Cosby comedy album and lip syncing to it.
Oh, yeah.
And not knowing that I was learning timing from a master. I was just playing a game.
That's funny. I remember doing the same thing. My grandparents had those old...
Right? On the giant hi-fi?
Yeah, exactly. I think it takes up a whole room.
It was a sofa.
That was, if I could find one of those things now,
right.
I would absolutely put it in my house. With the big fabric speakers and the, you know, there was like a little TV in there down on the bottom, and then the big turntable with the...
Yeah, I would build an iPod into it, but I would still want the big piece of furniture.
And that thing, what was that thing, that L-shaped thing? I can never figure out what it does, that goes, you know, you put the record on, the needle won't go down unless you put that L-shaped bar over. What
was that? Wow, I hadn't thought about that in forever. A worthless arm that existed that you couldn't... wow. Research team, get on that worthless arm thing. What is that? We need to know. Okay, so during this process, at what point are the early stages of life of Larry, which is really where you're able to execute all that you've learned and researched, also that your stand-up comedy has informed. What is the actual genesis? Because I know there's much that's been said about this incredible stepping stone, this incredible calling card, if you will. But can you walk us through just a couple minutes of the genesis of where something like that, what the spark of it is?
Well, you know, I mean, that was just... I had written a full half-hour pilot script for that character, you know, the guy and his dog,
right.
And quickly realized that as a college student, I did not have the time or the money to actually animate the whole thing as my thesis project. So I did little pieces of it, little snippets, and you know, tied them together with this ridiculous thing of this guy sitting in front of a fire with his Chinese manservant. And
yes, I'm going to ask you about Wang.
Yeah.
So prepare yourself for that.
Yeah. Chang Han, college buddy of mine.
Well, yeah, I assumed. I assumed that was a damn good friend of yours
yeah,
who said,
yeah.
Sure, I'll be
that is for
Asian
sure.
mute that brings you shit on a tray.
I remember him being terrified of, he's like, my God, when my parents see this, they're just going to kill me.
Yeah, sent his people back 40 years. Good for you. Yeah. I'm surprised he didn't bring in some Rogers. All right,
the name of comedy.
So you actually were writing the script thinking this is going to be my thesis.
Yeah.
And all right, so and tell me a little bit about the stand-up. This was something that you did as a lark, or something that had sort of been eaten away at you, and you thought, "What the hell?"
You know, yeah, it was kind of a lark. You know, it was something that looked fun, and you know, I was experimenting with impressions and voices and whatnot, and it obviously was quite familiar with your work.
Oh, well, needless to say. What?
And I thought, my God, he makes it look so easy. And you know, it's not, you know, not a routine I would revisit, that's for sure. But at the time it was, you know, got me some laughs. And,
I'm sure it did. The thing about voices, as I'm sure you discovered, is as long as you do the voice well, and make any attempt to put it in some sort of funny situation instead of just saying, "Here's Jackie Gleason taking a shit." As long as you don't take that easy route, you put a little imagination to it. What we're doing is we're basically stealing the magic that the audience feels for the actual person.
Interesting.
That's what I always felt. I love Peter Falk. I'm going to go, I can't believe he said that. And then it's an instant hit because they love him.
You could, by the way, rattle these things off right now, or I would still be mesmerized.
How much of a calling is there going to be for Albert Brooks these days? Nowadays, I have to say, Nemo, for the kids out there. It's ridiculous. Is it me? I'm going to go lie down. All right.
Modern Romance, was that not the greatest?
Oh, my.
The greatest first half hour of a movie in film history. Just the Quaaludes kicking in real time.
Oh, yeah. Bruno Kirby.
Phenomenal. Yeah.
Did the ludes kick in? Jay, give me a little credit. Come on. That scene with his brother shopping for the sporting goods.
Oh, God,
kills me.
Yeah. It's great because there's no shape to that movie at all. I mean, there's that whole scene in the middle with that just takes you right out of it. That whole thing with Jim Brooks and the mixing scene and everything. But it's hilarious. It just somehow it's there's enough funny all the way through that it.
Which is him.
Yeah.
He's the enough funny all the way through.
Yeah.
So you found inspiration, obviously, in stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
I think we all did. You couldn't
Yeah.
help but catch wind of something that original and that different.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess some has been written about who you may or may not have based the original characters on. I take it it's amalgamation of people you grew up with. But
well, Peter is, yeah. Peter's. I mean, that was the voice comes from a security guard that worked at RISD. And he just had this wonderfully thick Rhode Island accent, and everything was said at just a way higher decibel level than it had any reason to, and it's just hilarious. Everything this guy said was funny.
What kind of run-ins
like
though
that.
would you have with? Because I'm actually fascinated with the actual person.
Yeah, well,
that drove you to.
I worked, I had to work to make extra money to go to college, and I worked at the. I'm just now remembering this. I worked at the residence life office in college, and right down the stairs was the security office, and so I would go down there and hang out with those guys. And I remember one year we were all talking, and I thought, boy, wouldn't it be funny to make basically an A-Team episode with you guys, just the RISD security force, and we took like a weekend and basically did an episode of the A-Team with the freaking RISD security guards, and it was just hilarious. I think I still have it somewhere. I should probably.
Oh my God!
Should probably put it online or something. But
but this guy was part of it.
Yeah.
He agreed to be in.
Yeah. There was a bunch of these guys, and they're just great guys. They're just fun guys to hang around with, but such a great way to study that dialect, because it's even being from New England,
right?
And a lot of my family speaking that dialect, it's still, I think, probably the hardest dialect to do is that Massachusetts, because it's not quite New York, it's not quite Maine, it's not quite New Jersey. It's this weird, and I still can't do it perfectly.
It's not even pure Bostonian.
No, it's this weird kind of middle sort of thing, and I mean, it's hideous. It's a hideous dialect. It's awful, but it's just makes everything funny.
Well, it seems to fit Peter kind of perfect. When you say the word hideous, I understand the connection. And it's interesting when you make this film as your thesis, Life of Larry, and unknowing to you, the school sends it off to Hanna-Barbera. Mm-hmm. Did you know about that contest? Did you have any thoughts of maybe submitting it?
I had heard something about this thing that they did every year that they it was called the Freddie Award, and I still have it. It's like a little ceramic statuette of Fred Flintstone.
Nice.
And it's it was they would send student films in from all over the country, and they would award this prize to the one that they chose, and it was kind of a cool thing, because I know a lot of colleges, once they'll send you on your way after you graduate, and that's it. But I remember RISD that was one of their many efforts to actually kind of help to get us out there into the real world before we
unprecedented. I just
graduated.
Never heard of on-hands care like that. It's
an example of a college program working and actually helping to get you placed. I mean, I didn't know anyone at Hanna-Barbera. I had no contacts, and
you probably weren't even thinking about your thesis as being a calling card yet.
No,
it was still a thesis.
Yeah.
It was still, can I graduate, please?
Exactly.
And they said, no, this is actually job worthy.
Yeah,
let's get you a job. You start in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and they sent it out, and it worked.
Yeah. Do you just send them checks every week now?
I've sent checks, probably not enough.
I'm sure it is enough. In fact, I've seen the number. So I will allow you to bypass what must have been rectally painful experience at the Hanna-Barbera Corporation.
It was good training, actually. It was a fun place to work. It was very, these are the guys that invented the television animation medium.
Absolutely.
And so it was.
But it had to have felt a little bit like one step forward, two steps back in terms of what you were already planning on and
in
had
some ways
executed.
Yeah.
With life, with Larry, it was already to them was like, yeah, good kid. Now let us show you how to do.
Yeah.
That's how I sort of.
Let's say get to work on Peter-potamus.
Yeah.
It in a way, I mean, the only thing that was a little bit frustrating is that it was, at the time, it was entirely kids shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I had done this student film that was very edgy, and I had looked to The Simpsons as kind of the frontier of animation, and thought, God, that's where I want to be. And content-wise, it was a little constricting, but that came soon enough afterwards that I the pure value of learning from the studio that invented it was helpful, because it is, there is a lot that's different from just doing it yourself in college. There's things, weird things like exposure sheets.
Absolutely.
and timing alone is just.
But it seems like a natural order, quite honestly. It was like an apprenticeship is what you had entered.
Yeah.
And it seemed necessary in order to fulfill what it was you were about to do.
Very much.
Creator, because I understand that when you finally were able to set up support from Fox, originally do a so-called pilot, which was really 15 minutes?
About 50 minutes, yeah.
That it was literally all you could do morning, noon, and night to somehow pull this thing off, given the restraints of a $50,000 budget, but also the 6 months or something you worked on this, right?
Yeah. I was pretty much celibate for 6 months. I was just working like crazy.
Now seems impossible, doesn't it?
Yeah, it would be no fun to try that again. It's
your salad days.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, it's like they're back, huh? There's a fucking salad.
Can we get you some more onion,
right
by the way?
There.
That's clearing my nostrils.
Haven't touched it.
Yeah, this was a great prop, but he's not going to actually eat on camera. So if someone wants to clear this away and save a little salad for him later, that would be great. Thank you very much. It's hard-pressed to see a guest that comfortable that he would go ahead and masticate on camera. All right, so the I mean, a lot has been written and said, and I'm trying to not go into all the nook and cranny of the details that are reported and are quite accessible, as I am more sort of obsessed as I go through it with the creative process and the genesis of each project as it comes along, so that when you have the 30-page script already, that you decided, well, that's too much for a thesis, and now here's an opportunity for a network to fund a so-called pilot, but even that's only going to be 15 minutes. So, I mean, the early stages of that, aside from 6 months worth of drawing and 6 months worth of storyboarding, I imagine, how much assistance are you getting during that time?
Well, I had there's a company down here in Santa Monica that I had hired to basically shoot the drawings for me, and I would send big boxes of drawings with timing sheets down, and like once a week or so. And beyond that, I mean, it was really. I mean, I had to do it all myself. I had to stay out. And the good thing was, at the time, it wasn't like I was burdened with a day job that was so completely all-consuming. At the time, Hanna-Barbera had been absorbed into in the Time Warner merger, and no one really knew what to do with us. There was a lot of artists and writers who were kept on board just in the development department.
Sure.
And they were just paying us to sit around, and so you'd go home early, and I had plenty of time to work on this thing. So the timing of that was kind of fortuitous.
Yeah.
But what was also helpful is that at the time, there was a new development director at Hanna-Barbera, a guy by the name of Adam Shapiro, who had come in, I think, from New York, and was kind of charged with somehow getting the studio back into the prime time business. And he saw that I had this thing, Family Guy, that I was trying to do something with, and so he basically took me to Fox, introduced me to all the right people. And there's a great, one of my favorite stories is he said, all right, I'm going to set the meeting for next week, and I'll tell you how to get there. And have you ever been on the Fox lot? And I said, you know, I haven't ever been on the Fox lot. And if you walk onto the lot, as you know, there's that big mural of the Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader lightsaber fight from Empire Strikes Back. And he goes,
it's a great mural.
He goes, all right, so let's see. I'm trying to figure out where I can meet you, so you can know where to find me. All right, when you drive onto the lot, there's a big mural of it's got like Captain Kirk fighting swords with Buck Rogers. I'll meet you under there.
That's fantastic.
And
oh God.
And I drive onto the lot, and I'm like, oh, okay, that must be what he's talking about. That The Empire Strikes Back, that little independent film that came out a few years back.
Right.
I thought it'd be funny if there was an actual mural that depicted just what he was saying.
Captain Kirk fighting
with
Buck
him
Rogers.
standing underneath, smoking a cigarette. Told you I'd be here, asshole.
Yeah, that would have been great. Needless to say. Auto Drop, by the way, the name of that arm on the record.
Is that what it is?
My crack staff sent that.
Well, what do they call the little yellow thing that you put in the 45s? The little plastic thing?
Next assignment, the little plastic yellow thing that goes in the center of the 45.
And why was it? Why? We had a long conversation in the writers' room of Family Guy.
It was also the original swastika. Was that design?
Yeah. Oh, that's trouble. That's trouble right there. Why did they not have? You probably don't know the answers. Why would they not have the same size hole?
Right. Yeah. What is that? What is the deal? There has to be a reason.
What is the deal exactly? This is not me doing stand-up. I'm actually genuinely curious why it would seem like such a no-brainer rather than because like when you didn't have that thing, you're like trying to like do math.
Was the very first one just the way that they made the record players, or was it all?
Well, the old ones, right? The 78s from the 30s.
They had the small ones.
They had the small ones, and then somebody decided. I don't know.
I'm guessing cheaper.
Maybe
somebody found a way to oh, man.
Cardboard was that expensive. That crazy new invention, cardboard.
Yeah, still one of the more expensive commodities. Where did Wang end up before we go too far away from that?
I heard from him briefly about I think like 6 or 7 years ago.
Really?
I haven't.
Hit you up for a job, did he?
He didn't. His credit, he did. I'm sure he's doing just fine on his own. He was a very talented guy, but he I don't know what he's doing. There's so many people who I have meant to keep in touch with, and I just haven't.
It's impossible.
Maybe I should Facebook them.
Yeah, I've gone a little Twitter mad, but I did manage to avoid Facebook altogether.
I can't bring myself to do Twitter. I don't give a fuck what I'm doing half the time.
Yeah.
Why should anybody else?
Yeah. Also, you already have a fairly good setup in terms of reaching your fans instantly online, which we're going to get to, the SethComedy.com. That's pretty amazing. But also the YouTube channel and that whole explosion. But now, when you're doing, is there a convention in the other room? What? Seriously, what the fuck? The what?
There's some guys meeting.
Are there?
Yeah.
And do they know that we're doing a show? Did you? Had a great effect. Yeah. They got louder.
Do they know it's live?
Yeah. Do they know it's going to be on iTunes tomorrow? Now, when you were... first of all, people should go check out The Life of Larry. It's actually... You find it online fairly easily, but it's unfortunately was such a diluted version that I
Yeah, it's funny. You asked me if I had a copy. I don't. I have the only copy I have is in a box somewhere, and it's on 16mm film.
Right.
And I don't know if I could even still get a projector anywhere.
Well, it'll come with a hole in it they have to fill with plastic.
Yeah.
But so while you're doing that, you decide to fill in the story between the man and his dog with some Star Trek stuff, which runs through this. Obviously, a lifelong fan, and then you, of course, are voicing the all the characters on this, including the wife, Larry's wife, I believe you.
Yeah, that's right.
And why not?
Yeah. It's
and
kind
why
of a
not?
Gene Stapleton sort of thing.
Very much so, and I tip my hat to that, sir. So when you're doing the Shatner, were you influenced at all by anyone?
Yeah, God, there was a comic who did a dead-on Shatner, and I'm trying to remember what the fuck his name is, and it's escaping me at the moment.
David Fry. Frank Gordon.
Yeah. There's a lot of bad Shatners out there.
Oh boy.
There's a lot of people do Shatner. A lot of people do a bad Shatner. But
Yeah.
you got it down, my friend.
Well, the latest is the Christopher Walken. Everybody can do Christopher Walken, and there's like
yeah.
3 of us that can actually do it well.
Yeah.
And, it's the
Yeah.
same, Nicholson in the 90s.
Woody's the same way. Your Woody is underplayed, but articulated in exactly the right spots.
With him, I paid tribute to him copying the.
You're actually doing Woody Allen. You're not doing the Dana Carvey, George Bush, Woody Allen, where it's like its own thing, which is what most people do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Dana is actually an abstract artist. He turns everything into some abstract point of view at some. But to me, it was always Woody Allen doing Bob Hope. That's actually what which he copped to, of course, and the whole. That's all Bob Hope.
It is true. Like you watch those old Bob Hope movies, and you see so much.
His
of him.
asides.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
All right. So let's somehow move forward, if possible, because I've only got 6 hours with you. You're slaving away 6 months, slaving away because you're actually pursuing a dream, and it's incredibly hard work. But it also, I'm guessing, kind of feels like, Jesus, this is kind of it, and I've really got to. I do have to pour everything I have into this.
Yeah, I mean, they had given me, you're talking about The Life of Larry, or you're talking about
the pilot for Fox.
For Fox, yeah. That. I mean, they gave me something like $40,000 to do this animated pilot. Usually, it's about anywhere from $800,000 to $1 million to do an animated pilot. So,
right. And
I just said yes, I can do it, and I'll figure out how to do it after the fact.
And you did.
Yeah.
Somehow.
And it's kind of thing where it was a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Right.
Where they're basically saying, we'll give you a small amount of money. You're basically going to have to kill yourself for half a year. But if it works, then you're set. And, you've gotten in.
Right.
And so it was a gamble, but I managed to do it.
And when you did all the voices for the original 15-minute thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, for the original 15, no, I had a couple of college friends and some people from Mad TV who Fox had gotten to help me out. And actually Alex Borstein.
Who ended up doing the wife.
Who ended up actually doing Lois.
Yeah.
Was
she the original Lois?
She was, yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
So Fox looks at this 15-minute thing and says, all right, you can do one that's 30 minutes. I mean, do they do the series based on the 15-minute, or do they still want you to do a pilot?
They picked up the 13. They picked up 13 episodes based on that little crude piece of animation. 45
seconds of that phone call and
well, it was my mom that called me, actually, because my mother had taken to reading the trades ever since which I'm sure you have family members who have done the same thing, and it's horrible because
all of our dreams come true. When Mom calls with the box office numbers.
Oh, for the Tyro Frognet Prexy greenlit that Brosh scheme.
Did she wing in from Gotham?
I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about, Mom. But yeah, she called me at like 7 o'clock in the morning. She goes, "Oh my God, your show got picked up." And I said, "Really? Did it?" She goes, "Yes." She's like, she's back in Connecticut reading it online.
God, and this is how you find out?
Yeah. And I called my agent, and he said...
Fired him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I called him, and I said, "Is this true?" And he said, "Well, let me..."
He said, "I don't know, I'll call my mom."
Yeah, let me make a... Exactly. Like, let me make a call, and it turned out that it was, in fact, the case. So, somehow it's amazing how the trades know everything. Like, Variety knows before anyone.
Yeah, and Nikki Finn knows before Variety, apparently.
Yeah. Exactly. It's almost like Variety knows before the networks do.
Yeah, it's like, and also online especially, because they think they can leak a story there before it goes to print. And that, I'm assuming that's maybe what your mom read. Mm-hmm. So thank God Mom's on it, and she lets you know that you're going to be doing a series. And now you have to really cast this thing and hire a staff. Now, are you going to write the pilot yourself, or are you able to bring in an actual staff at that point?
Yeah. We brought on. They had me meet with a few high level co-EP writers, people from King of the Hill.
So you were treated like this is a real show.
Yeah, yeah.
No more, you got to kill yourself.
Yeah.
You're going to get the full-on treatment. You're a
Right.
showrunner. Mm-hmm. That's fantastic.
Yeah, they knew, they knew there was something there, but they also knew, all right, this kid has no idea what he's doing. He doesn't know how to run a show, so.
And you're okay with that, them
yeah.
bringing in some hitters?
Oh, yeah, I had no idea what I was doing. So I met with a few people, actually, and the guy that I responded to was this writer, David Zuckerman, who had written on King of the Hill for a number of years, and he helped, he actually put together one of the best staffs in Hollywood. He really had a phenomenal gift for picking out good people, and so he kind of helped me get this thing off the ground and ran it with me for the first few years, and then it got to the point where I was able to, I stopped being a moron. I was able to,
Well, I'm sure you were also, every day was a learning experience.
Yeah,
You must have just been soaking everything up.
Yeah, it was. There are times when it would get frustrating because, on the one hand, it's I needed the help, and on the other hand, I knew what I wanted, and so it was a very
delicate.
Yeah, and there was a lot of those first 2 years. There were a lot of blow up fights, for sure. But it was all, constructive, and it was all ultimately contributed to the show being good.
Did they lean on you to cast other people to fill out the voices before you ultimately decided to do?
Amazingly, they didn't. They liked what they had heard.
Because I know at least a handful of people came in for Brian.
Yeah.
I don't know because I was one of them.
That's right. Yeah. The moment when I guess I felt like an asshole is when I remember watching a tape of William H. Macy,
right,
who was put on tape for the voice of Brian, and somehow I wound up saying, I don't know. I don't think that William H. Macy is really cutting it. I think I'm going to do it.
That's what I was going to ask
which
you.
Really
at what point did you say, fuck all these guys?
Makes me just a horrible person.
No.
Who really has
yeah, you're right, because Brian really stinks now.
But it was more these were characters that I had lived with since college.
And when I watched I keep saying I want to say The Life with Larry, but The Life of Larry. When I watch it, Brian's voice is there. I mean, Steve.
It's not too much different. Yeah, it's not too much different, and it's. I mean, Brian was the only one that we auditioned.
Right.
Peter and Stewie, they said, "Look, why don't you just do those?"
Right.
They figured, well, maybe we should at least try to audition one of the other characters, and so it was. I think in some ways it was kind of a show of at least trying to do this, so they weren't putting all their eggs in this one basket, and it just turned out that it was just hard to kind of get someone to capture, what I had been sitting with for years.
I sure as hell didn't understand it. No, I mean, I had 3 or 4 people explain it to me. Finally, you were one of those people explaining it to me, and I still didn't understand it. Because, when you come from a vacuum, and you don't know the history and also the characters.
Well, there was no audition with you, remember? Because
no, we just met and talked about it.
You can't audition Kevin Pollak. You got to bring him in and have the meeting with him.
Perhaps if I had auditioned, I might have actually got the job. But no, I remember it felt very much like a vacuum because from your standpoint, you've been living with these characters now for several years.
Yeah.
And since your college thesis. So you know not only the sound that you're used to Brian making when he speaks, but also the comedic rhythm. I mean, he had a very dry deadpan from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, difficult to comprehend from anyone because initially you're saying, all right, so it's an animated show, but it's not, like a cartoon. It's more hip and edgy, and there's a talking dog. Of course there is. What? What do you mean? Yeah, and there's a talking 1-year-old. This is. What do you? Please help me.
I think. In looking back, it seems like the mistake we made in that process was also not, and we've kind of locked into what it is now that creates this tone that we try and capture. Is that we probably should have said to people, don't think of this as as voicing a cartoon. You're perform as if you're on camera, with all the subtleties and all the realism.
Right.
And that's really what, in a lot of ways, what the show has become. I mean, there are character voices that we're doing, but
Right.
you know, the way we direct our actors is very much
The way you would
know,
a
when
live performance.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes when we bring in voice actors, they get flustered because we'll say, just do it in your regular voice. You know, just give us like just play it totally real, and you know,
Right.
let what's on the page, you know, do its job.
Yeah. Well, that has become sort of the signature of I think, of the show. One of the things that people actually love about it is that it's a living, breathing thing. I mean, yeah, Quagmire gets pretty fucking ridiculous. But you have to believe that that's a character. You know what I mean? You have to be emotionally invested
Yeah.
at some point, or none of it really lives.
He came from when I was a kid. My father used to buy me audio tapes of those old radio programs from
Sure.
the 40s, like radio dramas like The Shadow and Suspense and whatnot.
They have them now, and I listen to them all the time.
Yeah,
on
they're
Sirius,
great. They're
yeah.
it's just a lost art form. That's
Absolutely.
just that you can put one of those things on before you go to sleep at night. They're the greatest fucking thing in the
Yeah.
world. So, but all the commercials would be intact.
Yes.
And it was always the one sponsor, Autolite brand spark plugs. You know, when it's cold as hell in winter, it's, you know, it's and these guys who would just talk and talk and talk at this fast-paced rhythm, and it was such a distinctive voice. And that's sort of where the Quagmire voice came from. Is that originally he was supposed to be just this '50s guy. The fact that he's a sex addict
That came
just
later.
didn't even came later. But originally he was just this
Hey, how's it going?
50s
Just-
guy. Yeah, you're basically taking it from here all the way up to here, and giggity go. And it and that's kind of
Was that an accident, by the way? The first giggity goo?
No, you know where that my friend Steve Marmel, who's a stand-up, who you may
heard the name.
know, would call me. You know, we would do breakfast on the weekends, and he would call and say, you know, hey, Geschmoigen Flavengeugel, you know, you want to get some eggs, and you know, he would do this Jerry Lewis impression, and as time went on, it just got really lazy. He would just call and basically say, hey, giggity, it's me.
Yeah.
Just no effort at all, and so it
There's
was
a
always
funny
that
thing between
word.
men when they communicate on the phone with each other. There's a slight unease, ill at ease, where they, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't quite really just say, hi, how are you? Good, nice to hear that.
Yeah.
It has to, some sort of game has to unfold.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's gotta get silly.
Yeah. It's got to get silly. It's got to be a hey.
Right.
Going on.
Right.
None of this. How do you do?
No.
Fine, thank you. Very well.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So the show gets on, you cast a thing, and you get some pretty great people on board, and you had no problem having the show sort of find itself in that first season. Why they put you on up against Survivor and Friends, no one will ever know. But clearly, it makes for an amazing, historic roller coaster that you then have to go through.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, that cancellation was the best thing that ever happened to that show, because it really was not. It's the only thing that saved it.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't. It wasn't doing well.
Right.
It needed that time to ferment that shows just don't get anymore.
Right.
I mean, Seinfeld needed that. You know, Seinfeld. That's what's so tragic. You look at all these shows that have come and gone in the past 10 years. That any one of them could have been another Seinfeld, but we just don't know because they pull the plug so quickly.
Yeah.
It's like when you think back to it, those first few years, nobody was watching Seinfeld. It was just kind of
Well, first of all, it was on Friday night.
Yeah.
The Seinfeld Chronicles.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked off air about my involvement in a little thing I like to call A Few Good Men, but I was working with Rob Reiner on another thing, a TV thing that he and Christopher Guest created called Morton and Hayes, a 1930s comedy team, and while we're working on that, Rob said, I'm going to be doing this movie. It was a Broadway play called A Few Good Men, and I got Tom Cruise. I think we're getting Jack Nicholson. And there's this part of Tom's co-counsel that you're perfect for. I got an offer out to Jason Alexander, but if Seinfeld gets picked up, he won't be available.
Yeah.
And it was, immediately, my thought was, well, they're not going to pick up Seinfeld. I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Because that's, just how no one was watching it. And you're right. No one was giving it a chance or a choice. And Rob was pulling out what left of his hair saying, this show if it just had time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you're right. It's unbelievably rare.
Yeah.
So getting pulled, was it the first airing that then went on to the Cartoon Network, or was that the second?
It was the first, let me think here. No, the show had been off for, I think, about a year before Cartoon Network started airing the reruns, and Fox pretty much gave them the reruns. They said, look, we're
done with this.
Yeah, there's nothing's going to happen here. And so Cartoon Network could just run them and run them and run them, and it actually ended up being great, because all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I'm reading in Newsweek that the show was beating Leno and Letterman in those adult male demographics.
18 to 34, beating Leno and Letterman.
Yeah, and suddenly that audience was locking into this thing.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the DVD sales were starting to skyrocket. And
before your mom called to tell you this good news, during that year, what are you going through? Your baby had been killed.
I just hitchhiking around the country, man. Just, bought a moped.
It was crazy time.
Yeah. It's time for me to find out who the fuck is Seth MacFarlane, man, and what makes him tick.
Something we're going to find out before you leave here today, mister. But I mean, these had to be some pretty depressing fucking time, because
it was,
or was there freedom?
It was kind of surprising. In the way Fox did it was very humane.
Oh.
I mean, they said, look, we because they genuinely liked the show, and they wanted to see it succeed emotionally as well as business-wise. Like, there was a lot of people that really were invested in the show, and they kept me under contract the whole time. So they, the show got canceled, but I was still getting paid to develop, new projects.
Your
for
next
them.
show.
Yeah.
But I mean, was that the mentality for you? Was, okay, listen, the company loves me.
Yeah.
I got a home.
Yeah.
I wish that would have been the one.
Exactly.
Let's get to work on the next one.
Exactly it.
The way that so many creative people do. Showrunners who've been around for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they do.
Yeah, I mean, you just sort of, they were very, very...
So to you, in a sense, was it still sort of your thesis? Because it was a continuation of that original idea and that relationships.
Yeah, the thing that was disappointing was that it was third season when a show, when most shows start to come into their own. And we had just started to play with this universe outside the family.
Right.
And that was the thing that was disappointing. That was, Quagmire, for example, was just starting to emerge as his own persona, and there was just no, and then it was gone. But I did, I worked on other shows. I consulted on Mike Scully's show, The Pits, which kind of came and went, but I built some great relationships with him, with his brother Brian, who now writes on Family Guy, with two writing team, Alex Sulkin and Wellesley Wild, who I met working on that show, and then hired them on Family Guy when the show came back. So all of it was time well spent. I did write a pilot with writing team Jack Kenny and Brian Hargrove, who ran Chris Titus's show.
Uh-huh.
And I wrote a pilot with them that didn't go anywhere, but it actually employed the character of Wang.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Sort of revisited Wang.
Nice.
There was
nice.
character of a rich guy and his Chinese manservant. In this version, he had found Wang, like in the ocean, floating on like a burning tire or something, and he had rescued him. And so Wang was like indebted to him. And
of course he was. And this was happening in modern times.
Yes. This was happening. Yeah, this was happening today.
Of course it was. It's nice when our fantasies can become a TV show.
Exactly the right response, by the way. This was happening.
Okay, now I
this wasn't happening on the Dumont Network, Mr. MacFarlane.
All right, so in terms of what brought back the show from certain death twice, not once, an argument of huge numbers from reruns on Cartoon Network during the Fox Network forced hiatus, or B, monster DVD sales, or C, much like what led to the ridiculous success of Wolfgang Puck and Oprah, you started using Satan's schlong as a salt lick. Which would you say is the correct answer?
Wow.
because I've got money on the third one.
As tasty as Satan's discharge is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was just the DVDs and
yeah,
the ridiculous Cartoon Network
It was a
numbers.
combination of those.
The network saw the demos for the 18 and 34, and they had to have.
Yeah. I think Adult Swim was sort of the icing on the cake. It's
Yeah.
the DVDs were really what did it, because everyone has had, every show that's been popular has been canceled, has had the letter writing campaigns, and it just doesn't mean anything to a studio. They just don't care.
Nope.
But here was something where people could basically send a message with their pocketbooks, and not just by writing letters, and the studio was suddenly making money on this thing that they had forgotten about. They're like, where's all this
I
coming
read
from?
you were coming in second on Amazon, just under the Harry Potter sales, which my God, that's crazy.
Ridiculous.
Talk. Yeah, it really. I mean, it's not unexplainable, but it is. There's no way anyone put money on it.
Yeah.
So it becomes a bit of a no-brainer at some point for them.
It was
so
pretty wild.
they just call and say we'd like to.
Yeah, out of nowhere they called me in, and I didn't know why I was being called in, but they and I figured maybe they wanted to do a special or a direct-to-DVD project, and Gary Newman, the head of 20th, said, "Listen, I'll be blunt. We're thinking of trying to sneak this thing back into production," and I just about fell out of my chair. I was like, "Really? That happens? People do that?" And it was a very unprecedented kind of setup, because they had sort of a deal where the show was technically being produced for Adult Swim, and Fox was just going to kind of sit back and observe, but basically with their finger on the starting pistol trigger, ready to go if it looked like it was doing any kind of numbers on Adult Swim, because they just, at the end of the day, they just didn't really know.
Right.
It was doing well, but could it, does that translate to a network? Is it going to do well on a network? Because obviously, on the biggest hit on a cable channel, as you know, is it's like
a couple million.
It means nothing on a network. So that was the real test, and sure enough, it did well enough on Adult Swim that it was pretty quick the way Fox jumped in and picked it up again, and we've been going ever since. So it was. I've had kind of this Mr. Magoo career where everything is kind of like, so much of it I attribute to timing, and that piece of iron, sliding into place at exactly the right point.
Right. Instead of taking it off your head, it
Yeah.
just gets your hat.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then there's Mom.
Yeah.
Who's right there on the phone waiting
Uh-huh.
to give you the next good news. I want to take a brief intermission, in which time you get a chance to see some examples of the Larry King game, but also stretch our legs a little bit, because there's some fun stuff I want to come back and talk about. For example, I'm just going to give you a little little sampling. In the middle of an episode, when you have a 9-minute digression featuring a fight between Peter and a chicken, is it a thinly veiled tribute to Stanley Kubrick, who more often than not made his films to annoy, frustrate, and perplex rather than entertain? That's the kind of area we may get into. I am absolutely fascinated by that. I mean, I really am. Because it takes the format, spins it on its head, and at the same time goes on to the point of, oh, Jesus, really?
I think it's more of a tribute to Stanley. Stanley, who was the guy? Was it Stanley Donen? Who was the guy who did Mad World?
Yeah.
Was that him?
Yeah.
Well, that's a perfect. I mean, that's. I mean, you got that gas station scene, which is one of the funniest things ever put on film. That thing where Jonathan Winters basically destroys a gas station for 10 minutes,
right.
And it just goes on and on and on and on.
And you can't believe it.
No, but you're laughing the whole time.
It's
just.
Was that really the
I pulled that out of my ass. But no, that was that was something that was ironically that was done. I wish I could take some credit for that, but I was out of the room when that was written. I was.
You weren't there with some of the writers.
No, I was working on storyboards and came back in the room, and the writers said, "Listen, we got something that we think is kind of funny. Just take a look at it." I looked. It's just pages black with stage directions. Page after page after page, no dialogue, and it just went on and on and on, and it seemed so so unprecedented and just so bizarre, and it's almost like the joke is more that we're wasting airtime on this.
Well, clearly.
Than the thing itself is what it is. I mean, we have this bit that we go back to from time to time where we'll just cut to variety show footage of Conway Twitty.
Yeah.
Because he's just the most astonishingly uncharismatic performer in the history of the business.
Well, it reminded me, Barry Levinson and Craig T. Nelson, believe it or not, were a comedy team in the coffee houses of the late 60s.
Wait a minute, really?
I swear.
Craig T. Nelson?
Craig T. Nelson and Barry Levinson.
T. Poltergeist Nelson?
the very one. And Barry told me that they did they were playing in coffee houses, basically, late 60s.
What did Barry Levinson and Craig T. Nelson do?
They were a comedy team, and I'm going to tell you one of their bits right now.
I'm lickety, I'm split. What the hell?
Exactly.
What did the two of those guys do?
They did a song and
the
dance.
Comedy stylings of Craig T. Nelson.
Nelson and Levinson.
Everybody's just going to shut up and laugh.
That's right. He was barking out orders, and at some point the manager came out and said, "The house is clear. There's nobody left, you asshole." No, he said, but they were surrounded by these acoustic duos who took themselves way too seriously. They were songwriters who went nowhere. And then the comedians had to follow this crap. So he said, you know what, let's be pretentious like they are. The audience doesn't know who we are. So they went out with the guitars, and they said, okay, this is our new single. We hope you like it. We're going to go into recording studio next week. It's called Table. Cling, 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 ding, 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 ding. Cling, 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 ding, 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 ding. And they tuned their guitars for 9 minutes. And he said, we both knew it was a 9-minute bit because for the first 3 minutes, the audience is on the floor laughing.
Yeah.
They can't fucking believe it.
Yeah.
Minute 3:01 to 6, they wanted us to die.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't believe we were still doing it.
Yeah.
They literally wanted to set us on fire.
Yeah.
But 6:01 to 9, they came back. They couldn't.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah.
That's the formula.
Yeah.
That, like it's really funny, then it's horrible, and then it's hilarious.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And he said it was a 9-minute bit, and he said
you can't half-ass it.
That's the thing. He said we get to like that middle part.
Yeah.
And halfway through they hate us, want to set us on fire section, sometimes Craig would look at me and give me a look like, we're going to cut, right? And Barry would go, no, it's 9 minutes. You got to stick it out, man. And he said sometimes you just never knew if they would come back.
Oh,
but anyways,
God.
I always think of that when I think of the 9-minute.
Yeah, those are, those guys are great because, who are we kidding? That it eats up time in a way that, you don't have to write as much other fast jokes for the rest of the show.
Well, clearly. You've taken a third of the show.
Yeah, but it's this Conway Twitty bit was that a lot of people, a lot of the fans just despised and just hated, but
they wish you would stop.
Yeah, it was Stewie saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Conway Twitty," and you kind of cut over to this old variety show footage of Conway Twitty.
As I recall, Stewie would literally be like a guest host of Saturday Night Live introducing the musical guests. Right. He would just look in the camera.
Yeah. Just say, "Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Conway Twitty," and we just cut to this footage. And the joke, the joke was basically that this is very expensive primetime airtime.
Yes, it is.
And here's Conway Twitty with that ridiculous haircut and that pink suit and that angry look on his face while he's singing. And there's the Fox logo down in the corner, which tells us that this is first-run programming in prime time. And it's very expensive advertising time, and we're wasting it on this.
And that's not you doing that to the...
It's maybe a little bit. It's just something funny about that. It's like, really, this is what they do with their time over there at family. This is how they spend their time.
Right.
This is how they spend this airtime.
Yeah. It's not... there is something about that, I think, in the natural-born comedian, the way that Letterman, for a while, would not stop going after Les Moonves. There was something sort of delicious about that. And it's Peck's Bad Boy, and it's Biting the Hand, and all of that, but the commitment to it and the necessity to it, as you just described, to spend the network's money at that rate in those minutes is absurd.
Well, Fox, the interesting thing about Fox is that they've always been shrewd enough to kind of to allow that. We've never had any instance where they've said, whether we're taking shots at them or at Fox News, never gotten so much as a single phone call.
Right.
That said, I think in the Empire Strikes Back episode, which is the follow-up to the Star Wars episode that we did. In the opening crawl, there's actually a line that points out that Fox was foolish enough to let George Lucas keep all the merchandising rights. And then the next paragraph says, "Are you listening, stockholders? How can you invest in a company that makes such short-sighted decisions?" And not even so much as an email.
Wow.
Just they're smart enough to recognize that by allowing that, they are kind of making they're branding themselves in a weird way.
Yeah, no question about it. God, this is great. Don't go anywhere, please. This will be a little something for give us a chance to freshen our drinks and our legs, and give Seth a chance also to see what the hell this Larry King game is that he's got himself into. Enjoy this, and we'll be back with you in about 3 minutes. I have all my guests do something called the Larry King game. You do a bad Larry King impression, reveal something about yourself on the air as Larry, doing the show, and then go to the phones. Hopefully the name of the city is somewhat funny sounding.
Okay, let me begin the transformation into Larry King.
Yeah.
Feel it? Pretend like you're wearing an Ed Hardy shirt? Yep. You just got divorced? Now you married a younger woman? Third heart attack. Fourth heart attack. There you go. Go, you're getting it.
I have a birthmark in the shape of Satan on the tip of my penis. Browntown, Ohio. You're on.
Now, Miami, Florida, 1965, neck deep in an orgy. Dick York gave me a blowjob so good it popped my goiter. California, Rancho Cucamonga, you're on the air.
When I'm feeling a little lonely, I dress myself up as a battered nun and head down to the farmer's market. It's a great conversation starter. Mesquite, Nevada, go ahead.
And just a side note, ever since my 82nd birthday, my poop looks like strawberry ice cream. Tastes like vanilla. Michigan Falls, Indiana, you're on the line.
Walla Walla, Washington, you have a question. I have a prostate the size of a small boy's clenched fist. Go.
Back when I was still drinking, I used to dream I was being attacked by a giant raccoon, and I'd wake up the next morning with a dead furry in bed beside me. Bald Knob, Arkansas, talk to me.
The best piece of pussy I ever had was Mary Magdalene. Yucaipa, California, you're on the air.
Every time I say or hear Anderson Cooper's name, a little bit of pee trickles down my leg. Knoblick, Kentucky, are you there?
I'm Larry King. Andy Rooney, Wilfred Brimley, and I all share the same cryogenically created torso. We're a human bobblehead. Monkey Brow, Arizona, you're on the air.
That's all it takes.
Hello. I'm Larry King. And I think the Viagra just kicked in. Dead Horse, Alaska, you're on the air.
I'm sitting in my own sauce. Wichita, hello.
Wichita?
What?
Before the surgery, I was known as Larry Queen. Sagaponack, New York, you're on the air.
Our next guest is the woman I want to fuck, Dakota Fanning. Boca Raton, you're on the air. Is that right?
No more calls. We've got a winner.
You're watching Larry King. I'm naked, I'm wearing a derby hat, and I'm on the internet. Ding Dong, Texas. You're on the air.
One time I let a chick shove a brush up my ass. Beaver, Pennsylvania, you're on the air.
That's all I was looking for. To be honest with you, that was really it. Yeah.
Larry King here. These suspenders are the only things holding up my balls. Coming, Georgia, you're on.
And that's all the news that we have this evening from Kuala Lumpur. I do want to point out an episiotomy takes longer than you think. Kermit, Arizona.
Official Dr. Khan Larry King game entry. You don't marry 7 different broads and maintain a respect for the vagina. Smiley Bird, Kansas, you're up.
In the fall of 1971, at a narco station in Button Willow, I had my entire fist up Monty Hall's ass. So is that kind of what you're going for?
Go to the phone.
Butte, Montana. So there you go. I wanted to do a long one.
How about that? How about that? You turn that volume down if you would over there, please. Because I fear it will be... Oh, you enjoyed the cookie. Nice. Okay. So now you have a little eye, right? Delightful? Those are homemade, mister.
Are they really?
I'm just saying.
You bake cookies here?
No. Well, I don't, but my better half does.
Nice.
Sure. We got it all. So you have a little idea now about what the insanity that is the Larry King. All right, so it's not that big a deal. Now, one thing I do want to ask about, because once the show is back up and running and it's finding its legs, and people like Quagmire are becoming three-dimensional and have a whole lives arc of their own, as you find one of your I don't know if it's a trademark, but one of the things the show's becoming known for also is a wonderful slap with a dead cold fish in the face of big time and slightly known celebrities.
Yes.
And no one is spared, clearly.
Yes.
Now, what's it like to run into some of these? Is that ever, and should I be flattered?
You know, it's, why, we reference you?
I don't think so. Let me see if we have anything that might suggest that.
Oh, shit.
Can we roll that, please? Panic in the other room.
Brian, I've missed
Here we
so
go.
much. I wouldn't be standing here right now if it wasn't for you.
She's right in here, sir. Just tell the disorderly when you're ready to leave.
Don't you mean the orderly?
No, I mean the disorderly. That's a little doctor joke we like to make around here. We also like Kevin Pollak.
Now, God. So clearly, when that happens, I'm.
I can't tell what the tone of that is. That's fairly neutral, I think.
I know. First of all, I feel good that doctors find me humorous.
Yes.
But
big in the medical community. Yes.
You know what the deal is it was kind of the same thing when I remember when I was watching Conan, and he does his thing about celebrity survey. And he'll have three celebrities, and two of them will be fake that they'll make up responses, and then the third one is the zinger where they actually make Britney Spears look stupid. And so I remember being thrown in there with that, and it was kind of like, well, it must have been a slow news day for him when they went through the Rolodex of whose name we should reference for this. And I was wondering, does someone in the writer's room throw this?
Oftentimes it's literally just
filler.
You throw a name out.
Yeah, right.
You know, it depends, and I most of the time when I run into people who have been made fun of, the response I get is, "Hey, you should have asked me to do my own voice."
Well,
and most of the time we've just gotten the feedback from the agent that doesn't want to do it.
Wow.
And then we'll hear from the celebrity themselves, "Hey, come on, I want to do it," you know. And
Right.
there's some kind of bullshit going on here. But Marlee Matlin actually called the studio after we made a joke about her and said, I don't know how she called the studio, but somehow she called the studio.
She wanted to do the voice of greased up deaf guy?
It was that's right.
She was pissed off he didn't ask her to do that.
That's my husband. But she said, you know, I would have done my own voice. So it's kind of interesting. We do take note of those things, you know, when we get those calls. There have been certain people. Damon Wilson, who was on Sanford and Son, was not too happy. We got a letter from him.
A cease and desist sort of letter, or
or
how dare you?
You know, sort of a how dare you letter. Ellen Cleghorn, for some reason, got really angry. But she called. Somebody gave her, I guess, the wrong number to call, so she called one of our artists.
He gave him an earful?
Yeah, so this poor Korean guy who's minding his own business sketching picks up the phone and just gets blasted with an earful by Ellen Cleghorn.
Who really should have called to say thanks for keeping my name in the business. Now, my point is, but, you know, I mean, that's what I just did is a little bit of the tone that is used on the show, which, quite frankly, because I worked with Rickles, and he would say, you know, the truth is, at some point, people expect this.
Yeah.
And they actually feel like they were welcomed into the fold
There was a time when it was hip to be. And I think it actually is still the case. But I remember there was a time when it became hip to be dissed by The Simpsons.
Absolutely.
And that became like kind of a cool thing. And hopefully we have reached that point ourselves. I don't know if that's not for me to judge, but it is sort of a weird kind of phenomenon that it becomes almost a positive thing to get the shit kicked out of you.
Well,
on one of
yeah,
these cartoon
by the
shows.
right source.
I mean, it means to me it means nothing more than, hey, you know what, you are relevant, at least to us.
Well, that's exactly right.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, you've heard it's lonely at the top.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to tell you it's fan-fucking-tastic in the middle. So when I'm recognized by a show that I actually watch and revere,
yeah.
quite honestly,
but that's also, it's within, you have a room full of comedy writers, and you are obviously respected by your peers. So
and they're going to take a shot at Reiser. They're going to take a shot at the guys that we all sort of watch coming up.
Yeah.
So I've heard you say that Stewie was based a little on the Rex Harrison, but and I mentioned Hank was here last week, and he's been admitting for years that his more known voices came from a bad Al Pacino and a bad Edward G. Robertson and a bad.
Yeah, that's been. I mean, Mel Blanc used to do that. Dawes Butler used to. That's a tried and true.
Yeah.
Voiceover technique. I mean, Top Cat was Phil Silver's. Fred and Barney were Jackie Gleason and Art Carney, to the point at which I think wasn't Gleason tried to sue the Flintstones at one point.
I'm sure he did, because a lot of people, I'll bet, thought it really was him.
Yeah, it's there's you see a lot of that. You see a lot of that in those old shows, and I think that's as long as you're not completely aping the voice, if you're using it as a springboard, which I think is what what those old guys did, and seems to be what Hank has done, and what I've tried to do. It's you start there.
Yeah.
And then you kind of...
Also, the fun with Stewie, in this case, is the absurdity of the one-year-old sounding anything like Rex Harrison.
Yeah.
I mean,
and his breakthrough was a surprise to me. I did not think that was the character that was... I thought maybe Peter would be the one that people would latch on to, and Stewie was just something that I thought was funny. And I figured this would be like an ancillary character that would pop in now and then for B stories and runners and whatnot. And from the get-go, when I pitched it to the network, I was kind of surprised that, people actually are getting this guy.
The one-year-old that wants world domination?
Yeah.
And did it, in fact, the genesis a little bit at least come from a 4-year-old nephew who once said to, I think, your mother, "I'll see you in hell"?
I'll see you in hell. Yeah, we're going to figure out where he found it out. It just killed us all. It was kind of hilarious.
But is that one of the things that you sort of drew from when you...
Yes. It was my... Excuse me.
No, it's all right.
This is good stuff, man.
Yeah. It's apple juice for those of you at home.
Yeah. You're allowed to drink on the internet, right?
You betcha.
Yeah, it was out of nowhere where the kid was like... The kid said,
4-year-old.
Yeah, the kid said... my aunt is waving goodbye after my family is leaving, and she goes, "Hey, Tyler, it was great to see you. We'll see you again soon." And the kid goes, "I'll see you in hell." And no one could figure out where that came from.
7-8-year-old, maybe.
Yeah.
4-year-old.
But there was something kind of amusing about that like there's maybe a small chance that he's not just aping something, that he actually means it. He's actually going to do some damage. This kid is going to murder somebody.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of that was something that definitely was in the back of my head when I came up with Stewie. Stewie originated as just like a goofy looking baby character. I mean, it was just this kind of blank faced, dumb looking baby, and that, among other things, I was a huge fan of Rex Harrison. There was something about the guy that just amused the hell out of me.
Right.
Became, the impetus for, putting some kind of a weird spin on it, because there's a baby character that just sits there on a lot of shows, and why not do something different? Why not do something that's gonna
make it fun for you first, also.
Yeah.
I would think that you want it to be fun for you if you're going to be voicing this thing every week, and to make all the characters real and come to life and have their own story arcs. And at some point. And then he takes on a life of his own and becomes what he has, which is pretty chilling at
Mhm.
times. And
really?
Yeah.
Genuinely chilling?
Well, in this, sure. When he,
it's supposed to be funny.
No, it's actually scary when he has the two. He's doing the cross between Face Off and Matrix with the weaponry. It's. So then, my question is, in terms of the future of Stewie. Where did I write this? Because, there's all kinds of rumors about what we have to look forward to in the new season.
Yes.
I won't ask you to give anything away because that's not fair, and you'll probably be as stiff-lipped as you should be about that sort of thing. But is there any sort of feedback from the same fans that gave the show? I mean, do they at some point say they become aware that they helped give this show rebirth, and therefore
do they feel proprietary towards
a little bit in the sense of we're a part of this process?
Well, I think that
I think you encourage it a little.
Yeah, there is kind of a weird phenomenon though that it's kind of a no-win situation with a show like this. That if you're not doing well, then it's like with a band. It's like if the fans of a band generally will insist that it's always their early stuff before they became big, before they got produced. Thereby, if you become more popular, you're somehow it's a bad thing and you're not as good.
Yeah.
And with Family Guy, that has been the case. I mean, there's a lot of those fans have since, in many ways, I think, rejected the show, or at least become hostile towards it. They'll watch it, but they become hostile towards it because it's no longer their thing. It's no longer that thing that they know that no one else does, and therefore they can
popular.
Feel like they have something special.
Yeah.
Which I get. I mean,
Sure.
that's I completely get where that comes from. But it almost begs the question: well, what would you like us to, where would you like us to be when we were not doing well? People would bitch that, oh no, why doesn't the network get behind this show? It's so good. What the hell's wrong with them? And then when they do, they have the opposite criticism.
Yeah.
So it's
you can't feed that beast as a pastime.
Yeah.
No,
they like us. They like us better when we're the quarrymen.
That's right. They certainly do. All right, so the show gets its own life. It has become an institution.
You have aphids here,
What's that?
I said you have aphids.
Oh, do we?
Yeah, I'm walking around.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right.
It was something I was hoping you'd notice. You eventually are in a position to create a second show in American Dad, which after going to the table reading recently, it was my first. I was kind of, figured when you were doing these multiple voices that the table reads must be a fun opportunity for something that I've been doing in my act, which is just one person doing a lot of voices at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And for other people around, they must look at it and think, he's pulling it off an impossibility at the table read, because obviously when you're recording, you can take your time with each character, but that's got to be fun as the performer in you.
It's yeah. I mean, it's the table reads are I mean, they're always it's definitely an atmosphere that is there's no other. It's the closest thing to doing a live action sitcom that you get on
that your show is gonna get.
That any animated show can get.
Yeah.
That step is the one kind of glimpse.
A little bit of live theater before it's.
Yeah, it is fun. It is
because there's a full, 40 people in this little room, and
no, it's a performance. It's like it's like anything. It's like how you tell what jokes are working.
Sure.
And there's a great example that of something that didn't work, where the table read becomes very valuable. We did an episode that Fox initially banned called the When You Wish Upon a Weinstein.
Sure.
And the premise was basically Peter decides that his life will be greatly improved if he befriends a Jewish guy.
Got to get a Jew in his life.
Yeah, needs a Jew. And so the initial version of this script, which was written by a Jewish writer, but that still wasn't enough for people in this room.
Nobody.
So the initial version of the script had the Jewish guy basically as an individual who could do magic. He was like a genie. He had magical powers.
Nice.
He was that godlike. And we introduced him in a scene in which it's kind of a parody of E.T., where Peter is standing in the house and he hears a noise from out in the shed. And he goes outside and, like Elliot in the movie, he rolls the tennis ball into the shed. And the tennis ball rolls back out. And then he rolls a quarter into the shed.
Nothing comes out.
The quarter doesn't come back out. And it's just dead silence in this read. Like, people were just horrified and appalled. And, you know, that doesn't happen all that often anymore, but that was an instance where it was, you know, we just basically threw out the whole script and, you know, came up with a new kind of more grounded take on it. And they still didn't want to air it. But,
Sure.
but that table read is you know, it can be a glorious experience and it can be a horrifying experience.
Right. Which is kind of great.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, to test by a committee, and a committee of 40 or so people, whatever the number is, it's a packed little room there.
Yeah.
And you must know from experience over the years that a lot of times a table read of an actual sitcom is just the writers are there.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens at the live in front of the audience. The writers huddle around the monitors, and when their jokes get read, as a group, they go, ha 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 ha! Yeah. like trying to juice the audience into laughing.
Yeah. There's a lot of discussion about that after the fact too. You sit there and you say, was we sure that wasn't just us? That sounded like us laughing.
Right.
You know, was there from outside that ring?
Yeah.
Did that joke get a laugh?
Right. Because at some point, when the show becomes popular, and then it's a matter of wanting to just do a great show every week. You do need fresh eyes and fresh ears, I would think, on a regular basis, right?
Yeah.
Is that something you sort of insisted on over time? And
well, the table read is I mean, The Simpsons and King of the Hill, they kind of latched onto that because most of those writers obviously came off of live action sitcoms when they started those shows, so they kind of made that an everyday part of the process of making an animated show, and it's a valuable part. I mean, it's, you know, because really it's like you're working until 3 in the morning, you're nose deep in these scripts. You can't tell what's funny by that point.
You lose objectivity.
Yeah.
So it's a tradition that's been going on a long time. All right, so big splashy news. I'm not sure Mom was the first to tell you in 2008, after 2 years of negotiations, when you signed the big deal with the mothership for Family Guy and American Dad to run through 2012, making you, dare I say, the highest paid TV writer-producer in history. I have to ask, and the only reason I brought this up, it was the choice of 2012 based it all on the Mayan calendar.
Oh, God, no. January 1st, 2013, I'll be the guy going, see?
Assholes.
See?
I know.
Can we all just settle down now? Can we not do this again, please?
Ever? Mayan calendar runs out 2012, and now these people are actually taking it seriously.
Yeah, let's trust people who thought the fucking sun was magic.
Right. Yeah. And when the rays of sun come through the clouds, it's God talking.
I'm trying to figure out. There's that scientist who wrote that book that
yes,
and I'm drawing a blank on his name. The fellow who wrote the book, basically detailing all of the reasons that it's going to happen. You know, our galaxy is moving into an energetically unstable part of the. You know, our solar system is moving into an energetically unstable part of the galaxy. You know, this, that, and he must have a game plan. Like he must be thinking either, all right, I'm going to make a shitload of money now, and in a few years it'll just kind of fade away when it all turns out to be nonsense. He must have some kind of
timeshare
game plan, or he's going to say it was all a hoax. See, I wanted to see if people were as gullible as I thought they were. You know,
with that version, I think he'd be run out on a rail. if he's
Maybe.
buying himself timeshares in Boca Raton and setting away a little nest egg based on
But he's got to have some excuse, that guy, because I mean, if he's any kind of a respectable scientist, he must know that he's full of shit.
Yeah, it has to be a scam.
Yeah.
Because, by the way, to have all that scientific evidence, which I think we both prefer versus the religious teachings that someone could part an ocean, for example, or talk to a burning bush. I'd rather have science. But when science at some point says, well, a lot of this is based on the Mayan calendar, you need to kill yourself.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Just,
I don't think that. I mean, that's pseudoscience. That's not
exactly.
That's
because, like you said,
but it's we have to update our superstitions with every century. I mean, it's like that's you can't say it's the end of the comets are going to kill us.
Yeah.
Fire is going to rain down from. We need to update things. We need to make it edgier. It's like there's no demon abductions anymore. Now it's alien abductions.
Right.
It's all.
Yeah.
We have to keep our nonsense fresh.
Yeah, and Armageddon was fantastic as a movie, but
Really? I'm partial to Deep Impact, my friend.
Are you?
Yes.
You should be.
Very underrated movie.
No, I was mocking the Armageddon as a movie. I'm not a fan.
With as much heart as Michael Bay manages to infuse in his pictures, still couldn't get into it.
Really? You had a problem with that? Now, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but we like to involve the audience on this particular show. And I've kept them out of it as long as I possibly could.
Well, they're out there now because this is live.
Exactly.
Which is just
Creepy.
electric, man.
You could feel the ticking clock? No, that's Jack. Any plans? This comes from at Eckelkins or Ecalkins. Any plans to transition to writing, directing live-action films? There's been talk for quite a while, actually, that you're...
That sounds like a made-up name, by the way.
It does. Of course it is.
Sounds like the guy that Archie Bunker used to insist was the funniest guy in the world down at the plant.
Oh, yeah. What was his name?
Was it Stretch Cunningham, right?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, at Eckelkin's funniest guy there is.
Start with John William There's been talk for a while that you are working on live-action movies, or maybe they're animated movies as a writer-director. Anything you can elaborate on, or is it just something that you're going to continue to work on?
Here and there. I got some. It's time. It's trying to juggle something that is in effect a 7-day-a-week job with getting something new.
Job.
Yeah. I mean, the Family Guy movie we've been talking about for 2 years, and we kind of know what it's going to be, but we just haven't had time to sit down and do it.
Right.
It's just, and it's a problem that The Simpsons had for 20 years, is that they couldn't figure out how to. The workload is really 10 times as much.
Right.
As on a regular sitcom. It's like you're trying to produce a movie every week, and it's amazing that anything gets done.
And so that begs the question, in the midst of all that, to do the I don't know if it started on the YouTube channel or SethComedy.com, but the minis or the shorts or the series that you did with...
Yes, the Cavalcade.
The Cavalcade.
Yeah.
The Cavalcade of comedy, yeah. That was a pretty serious undertaking in terms of time commitment.
Yeah. It was an experiment, and I think it remains to be seen whether it was a successful experiment or not.
Well, the fact that they got made, the fact that there was a sponsor working in conjunction, the fact that you were able to mock the sponsor in the piece at the beginning, not mock them, but just display them in a humorous way, be it Chased by a Planet of the Apes or the Natives, tip of the hat to Indy, I'm assuming. That all made it sort of fresh and clean and easy, accessible to the viewing audience, and not feel like for this milieu, my notion has always been 1950s TV, which is just this hour brought to you by.
Yeah.
So I've always been about that sort of thing. So it already worked. Whether you can maintain it or want to maintain it in the next several years, that's the question.
I mean, even that was a pain in the ass to do at the same time as Family Guy. It was. I mean, the thing that was kind of unprecedented is the television method. Full-on television level production being used for direct-to-internet programming.
Yeah.
There was no flash animation. This
Right.
was all hand-drawn, the same way we do it, same way The Simpsons does it, King of the Hill. And that's what was pretty unprecedented. But, it really remains to be seen, I think, whether the thing, how do you quantify it? Did it make money? Did it make a profit? I think they're still trying to figure out how the hell you map that.
Yeah. Are you okay if we show a piece of this?
Yeah, sure.
We're going to take a couple of minutes just so I can feed this to... In the middle of the page there is the link, and I, of course, forgot to get my crack staff before we started. In the meantime, sir, I will give you a Tweet 5 from our audience. Tweet 5 is a rapid-fire question, a this or that sort of thing, an A or B choice. And it should be stream of conscious. No real concern or involvement has to go into your answers. And this comes from, these are all Twitter accounts, I'm assuming, @r_silent. Not so silent now, are you? How many more people do you need to make fun of before you feel safe to say my work is done here? 2? 3? Or 3?
Another 6 or 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brady Bunch or Partridge Family?
Brady Bunch.
Sure, please. Best way to get rid of dead hookers?
Partridge Family was an abortion.
Clearly. I did dig the van, though. The van was a pretty sweet ride.
Sorry.
Best way to get rid of a dead hooker?
Soylent Green.
Soylent Green? Immature things that make you giggle. I think we just got it. And who would you go gay for? Well, that's fairly clear now. No? Sitting here?
Hey, maybe Kevin Pollak.
There you go. Thank you. That was a strange... I like this one. Let's go with this one. This is @Marosek, Tweet 5.
We have any Americans on this thing?
No, these are all made up Eastern European villains. These are Bond villains that I'm giving you. Right?
Logan 5 says...
Exactly. Live life, if you had to, as Quagmire or Peter?
Ooh, it's a tough one. My danger from heart failure would be greater as Peter. I don't know. If I could do some kind of DNA splicing and do like a clone that's kind of a combination of the two of them, that probably would be what I would do.
Or just go with Brian.
Yeah. That's what I'm doing anyway now, man.
Yeah. Would you rather stay on Fox or move your shows to HBO? Well, that's kind of absurd. Why, if you have a great thing and wildly successful juggernaut that's $1 billion industry?
It depends on the regime, Right now, Fox is run by very, very smart people, so I'm very happy there right now. But,
right. Should they become their dumb offspring? Drive or be driven?
Drive.
Sure. Well, until.
Yeah. Not now.
Pop culture or actual culture?
Believe it or not, actual culture.
And how do you qualify that?
Read a book every once in a while.
Yeah. You feel a little
Even if it's just a few pages before you go to bed.
Right.
Keep one by your nightstand.
Makes you feel enriched.
Yeah.
Sure.
Whether you are or not, it remains to be seen. But
that doesn't
feel
matter.
enriched.
It's all about presentation.
Yeah.
Go back to school or move back to a small town?
Move back to a small town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You must have some sort of vacation log cabin?
I don't have a vacation home. No.
Are you a guy that has trouble vacationing?
Yes, very much.
Because I know this is a syndrome that exists in certain...
Yeah. I go and take vacations because people...
Force that on.
Yeah, they goad me into it, and I get there, and I'm like, oh, all right, well, I'm in this place now. What do I do?
And are you good for like a day?
I brought some work with me. I'm good for a day. Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
And then get me the fuck out of here.
Yeah. It's you can't sit still, and I guess when you're married, you have a family. I imagine it gets easier. I imagine there's the whole vacation thing becomes a bigger deal. But with me, it's like, I just want to get back to what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. As it turns out, you actually enjoy your life.
Yeah.
The idea of
it's
escaping.
Stressful. Yeah, it's stressful, but it's not like it's so stressful that it's.
Well, you've worked really hard to get to a place that now you kind of see the hundreds of people that work within this machine that you've created, and that has its own a sense of reward, as well as the amount of work that you actually get to do in any given day.
It's all still fun. I mean, it's all still a working vacation in and of itself. I mean,
Right.
It's like I'm not digging ditches. I mean, it's fun.
Yeah. Well, now, when the chance of doing a second show with American Dad came along, was that something that you and a couple of writers were kicking around, or was there a conversation you had with the network first where they said, "You got another show you want to do?" Chicken or the egg?
There was a definite message from the network that said we are in the market for new animation, and Family Guy was gone; it hadn't come back, so I got together with Mike Barker and Matt Weitzman, who were two writers who had worked on Family Guy for years, and we conceived this idea of American Dad. And at the time, it was kind of an appropriate type of show to do for that time. We were trying to do kind of a modern day All in the Family, because at the time it was.
And you had the Bush administration.
Yeah, at the time it was around the time of his re-election, and we were all bent out of shape. I don't know what your politics are. We were all bent out of shape about that.
Well, let's just say I'm looking forward to the George W. Presidential Library so I can play with crayons.
Good. Okay, there we go.
You walk in, and clink, 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 clink. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So you guys came up with
we were
this
pissed
thing.
about that, and
Right.
we thought, here's an outlet. We can actually do something hopefully that has a point of view, and
the show plays both sides of that coin.
Yeah,
too,
yeah. I
which
mean,
is nice.
we used or tried to use that model because it works of the Archie Bunker model. That this is a guy you either you can appreciate him on two levels depending on who you are.
Right.
If you are objective, you can recognize that he's full of shit. Or if you're just like him, you'll fall in love with him, and either way, the ratings are through the roof.
That's right. You get both sides of it.
Yeah.
But why the Nazi fish? Because it's one of the funniest, strangest oddities I think that's ever existed.
The fish was originally going to be French.
Okay.
And at one point he was going to be French. At one point he was going to be a black guy. We had...
was it the French? Was it like, why just be a sympathizer? Why not just go with the actual Nazi?
Yeah, exactly. Let's not be Maurice Chevalier. Let's be,
the people who walk through his art collection.
Himmler.
Yeah.
But we
it's an experiment got bad.
Yeah, well, that was actually more of a result of the actor. There's a voice actor named D. Bradley Baker, who we were having no luck casting a French voice. We just weren't. It just wasn't sounding funny. And I had remembered D coming in to record some animal sounds for us at one point because he does that beautifully. And he had kind of warmed himself up in the booth with this kind of German accent that was kind of slipping in and out of the language. And I had taken 4 years of German in high school for whatever fucking reason that escapes me now.
Prepare yourself for the day that's coming.
Yeah. just in case they get it right. But he, I had remembered this voice, and I thought, well, why don't we? This French thing isn't working. Let's just bring in somebody funny,
right,
and let that dictate what the character is, and that ended up being what we did.
Yeah.
So this was an instance where the voice actor kind of dictated the direction that the character took.
And what is the genesis for the Paul Lynde tribute? Because that is as inspired as the Rex Harrison tribute. It really is.
Again, he's just a funny guy. It's that era when those are two guys, Rex Harrison, Robert Preston, Paul Lynde, when gay was hilarious.
Yeah.
And we didn't acknowledge that it was gay. It was just those guys are funny.
Yeah.
I can't pinpoint it, but they're funny. They're making me laugh.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, did we just hear the story recently? Paul Lynde on a jet, and there was a baby crying. And do you know the story?
No, but I'm sure he did something horrible.
On the show.
Oh, he did tell it on the show. Okay, it was told
I
on.
think it was him, right?
I think so too. Yeah. Yeah, Paul Lynde, apparently in a public situation, got awfully rude and hilarious. Also, so I felt that maybe part of the choice was that based on your enjoyment of the real Paul Lynde and his comedy,
Mm-hmm.
it gave you an opportunity with Roger to make him fearless and also no boundaries. He can go any which direction he wants because he's not just an alien, but silly and goofy and crazy. And
Yeah.
I mean, the voice. I don't know if it's because I'm used to it now and I'm enjoying it now, or whether it was kind of a no-brainer from the beginning that you want to give a voice that. Just the whole sense of I don't think so. Just that whole sort of silliness that is instant when he's laughing at his own.
Yeah, I mean, ideally you want a voice that just inherently sounds funny. Something that ideally you can read the phone book and you're laughing. And you know, I mean, what's a funnier voice than Paul Lynde?
Well, you've proven it.
Ridiculous man.
Yeah.
And an angry guy, supposedly. Very angry, very
Well, that was the thing on the plane.
Guy.
Do you not remember?
Yeah, and I need some help. Remember, was it something like the baby cry?
A baby was crying. He said, "Somebody shut that baby up before I fuck it."
Before I fuck Yeah, somebody shut that baby up before I fuck it.
Dark guy. He's just a dark, angry dude.
Right? Is there anything better than that? I mean,
for comedy, it's perfect.
Can you imagine being on the plane and just, what did he say? Did he just? Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, he's. But you know, it's like to America, he was Harry McAfee.
Yeah.
Bye Bye Birdie.
Yeah.
Center Square. You know, he was this.
He
was delightfly goofy.
Yeah. Not the drunk baby fucker on planes.
No.
That's not how we knew and loved him. Now, I know you had a musical training that was quite serious at some point in your younger days that prepared you for your musical penchant. Once again, proving that the French is just not funny. So, is that some of what was behind the Family Guy Live in Vegas?
Yeah, I've taken vocal training for about 10 years from a couple, both in their 90s, that have been working, for decades. They both had TV shows, radio shows in the 40s. He was an opera singer. The names were Lee and Sally Sweetland. And he just passed away about 2 weeks ago. And they have been around for forever. They trained Sinatra at one point. They trained Streisand. They work out of Hollywood, and they're just, you know, the real deal. And because of the type of music that we do on the show, it was particularly helpful. You know, we use about a 50-piece orchestra every week for Family Guy, and that's really the only way that we were able to do those kinds of numbers.
Right.
It's like you can do it with a synthesizer, but you're not going to hold people's attention.
Yeah.
It's like you got to have that air in the room.
And that's one of your favorite places to go, I understand.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Scoring stage.
Well, it's the one place. It's the one spot that I can, when I'm doing the show, where I can kind of just sit back and just kind of relax and let the composer and the players and the engineers, they don't need me there.
Yeah.
You
Also,
know?
the
Like
gravity.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing. It might be the single. You know, the table reads are fun to watch, but those scoring sessions might be the single most impressive thing to watch.
That's the next thing we have to go to. We have to beg our way into.
Definitely come to one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I read about it, it instantly sounded mesmerizing.
You're just not prepared for it. You walk into that room, and it's the big sound stage where they did the Sound of Music and, Hello Dolly and all these old Planet of the Apes and whatnot. And it's huge, and it's this symphony orchestra that is playing these little, anywhere from a big cue that covers the chicken fight, right down to those little, every time you see the Griffin's house and it goes, those 3-second cues, they have to play that.
Oh, God.
The orchestra will play that, and they'll do it 3 times, and
that
then move
must
on.
not be satisfying at all.
No, you feel a little guilty. You feel a little wasteful.
No. I think that's the magic that you don't want to get. You don't want to talk about it because it actually is a heartfelt thing. But the truth of the matter is, that's got to be one of the more sort of profound aspects if a show that's supposed to be silly and fun can have. I would think. But also there's the Family Guy Live, where you do table reads. Mm-hmm. Is this around the country or just at a few events? Or
we've done it at a few venues. We did it at the Montreal Comedy Festival. We did it
in Chicago. You did the Big Blue Harvest one.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, we did that in Chicago. We did.
Was that in a theater? Where would you do that?
It was, yeah, and I can't remember the name of the theater. Sometimes we do it with the orchestra.
Jesus.
We did it. Actually, we did it at Carnegie Hall with the orchestra, and then we did it at the Amundsen Theater out here in L.A. with the orchestra. And it's always fun. It's a very kind of Rat Pack-ish kind of atmosphere to be in the middle of. You know, when you're up there, just kind of messing around, and there's 40 guys behind you with violins. You know, it's exciting.
That's you getting your live performance, Jones.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh man. Let's get us into one of those too, honey. When's the next one?
We do them all the time.
Do you really?
Yeah, anytime you want to come.
That's on film.
That's
now,
on
right?
film.
Okay. That's on HD, anyways. Well, you know, you've said before that you were quite the Star Trek fan, but also quite the Star Wars fan, and then you ultimately do what many suggest was the consummate Star Wars parody in the Blue Harvest. How long from the notion of, you know, someday I want to Blue Harvest actually being done?
Well, you know, it wasn't anything that we set out to do specifically. We had just done so many Star Wars jokes.
Jokes, yes.
Because it's you know, it's our audience loves them, and there's a lot of fans in the writers' room. And we had done so many that the legal department started to say, all right, you know, we're going to get sued because we're doing so many of these things. So if you want to do any more, we have to submit them to Lucasfilm. And we thought, great, you know, there goes the end of...
We're done.
Yeah, this is it. And I remember there was a gag in one episode where it's a takeoff on the you know, medal scene at the end of the first movie where, you know, Peter, he wins he breaks a world record or something, the Guinness Book of World Records, and they give him a medal, and you know it's got that John Williams fanfare at the end. And we sent it to Lucasfilm, and they said, what was the best thing we could have heard? They said, you can do it, we just want to make sure that every character looks exactly like they do in the movie.
Oh, God.
Which is, what we usually hear is, yeah, you can do this Smurfs gag or this Captain Crunch gag, but you got to change the character a little bit or we'll get sued. Here's Lucas saying, no, just do it right. And we're like, great, fantastic. And after that response, we thought, God, you know, they're so accommodating and they're so
Let's push the
progressive. Let's ask them if we can just do the fucking movie. You know, do the Blazing Saddles airplane kind of take on this movie. Just basically do the movie, put our characters in it, and write a bunch of jokes. It would just be fun.
Yeah.
And they said yes. And it's we've since done the second one comes out this Christmas.
You got it loaded?
Which one do you want?
The cats at the boardroom table? Yeah.
Give us 30 seconds.
I got to show one of these from the Seth comedy, The Cavalcade, because to go back to that just for a second, I applaud that effort, obviously what I'm trying to do here, but also, you know, I think the audience that first spoke out and stood behind and for all intents and purposes resurrected what became an amazing television success story, that demographic, I think in a way felt like you were speaking to them again, quite frankly.
That may be it. Yeah,
that was the correlation
our core audience
that I saw.
Had locked into the Star Wars. Yeah, you know, that's an interesting point. I mean, that could be that they felt like this is for us, because really I mean, that episode more than any other recently, I suppose, is. I mean, there are jokes in there that whole episode. I think if you're not well acquainted with that movie, you're not going to think it's that funny.
Nope. But if you are,
then
it's ridiculously.
Then it's the idea is that it's sort of hopefully a gift. But
well, that's what made it the consummate. That was the thing that I was driving at, which is there's doing jokes here and there, and then when you get all gloves are off from Lucas saying just do it right, then that becomes
Well, there's something weirdly unsatisfying about the Spaceballs take. I mean, it kind of sounds like the music, it kind of looks like the helmet, but it's. And I loved that movie as a kid, but it's like there's something. Those things like those music cues and those camera angles and those specific line readings that we all know so well. It's like, why not get that specific? And really, if we're parodying it, let's parody it and parody the things that people remember, right down to the way a certain syllable is delivered.
Yes, yeah, and then it becomes more of a tribute or an homage as well as a parody, as opposed to a silly send-up, which I think is what Spaceballs ultimately was. Are we queued and ready to go? Fantastic. Cat staff meeting from the Comedy Cavalcade.
Now, if you'll turn to page 3 in your packets, we'll go over fiscal projections. I'm pleased to announce a 32% increase in profit for the fourth quarter, as well as a 16% rise in yearly revenue at all subsidiaries. This is despite heightened competition and higher labor costs. Compound percent yield, of course, assumes reinvested interest. Now, value-oriented stocks appear to be attractive prospects once again and quite able to generate a healthy cash flow and give investors a reassuring margin of safety. Although the market is far from where it was 6 years ago, we're looking anew at value stocks and mutual funds that hold value-oriented shares, which tend to have a low price-to-earnings or price-to-book ratios or high yields from dividends. In fact, value stocks have performed better than growth stocks over the past several years among the larger corporations, and the long-term compound appreciation is quite impressive.
Ha ha! Douchebags!
Volume. To me, that's actually perfect because of the way it builds. You have the cats with this ridiculous situation where they're in a boardroom, and then I like that how the ball comes in. First of all, you're looking at the back mirror, a back window, and it's nothing in its scenery, and it doesn't even really cross your mind. And then you start to sense, where is this going? And just when you start to have that feeling, the ball comes in, and then it just stops. It's like a big announcement. Yeah, there's something funny coming, and you're going to have to wait for it. It builds and it builds.
That's an example of just getting our timers to play it completely real. It's like whatever the weight of that ball is in real life, it should be the same weight in animation. It shouldn't be cartoonishly swinging around. It should feel like it's solid. It should feel like there's actual destruction going on there.
This is a mindset from a creative standpoint, quite frankly, that I was hoping, to address, because, we've heard in the live action version of that, we've heard the designing of these shots and what it means and the comedic timing. And I remember when you did the fast talking high trousers. That's something that tapped into us and our love of the comedy timing of the 30s or the 40s and how it varied and changed and oh, you do you? And that whole thing. And then that's just a wonderful, rich place to. All right, but to hear the construction of a piece like what we just saw from really, the blueprint aspect of it, which is what you just said. The weight of that ball has to be in human terms. It has to be real. It has to be. I'm pretty fascinated by stuff like that. I really am.
It's like you're. There's also the necessity of. If what you're doing is essentially an animated version of like a one-frame cartoon of the Gary Larson or New Yorker variety or whatever, you want to kind of, at least in that instance, you want to, and a lot of these things actually, you kind of want to just set, there's no camera angles or movement, it's just all in one, you just set the thing down and just let the action play out. There is an element with Family Guy and with all these shows that at times deliberately has a feel of a stage play.
Right.
That rather than cutting around character reactions and subtle, bits of acting, we just kind of set it down, let it play out. And that's something I remember always noticing in Woody Allen films.
Not a lot of overs.
Not a lot of, there's these shots that will just go on and on and on, and it's kind of nice because
Comedy plays in a two-shot master. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And you're not allowed to do it in movies that much.
Yeah. It's allowed to just play out at its own pace, and we can look at what we want to look at, and we can project. I mean, that's one of the brilliant things about the Simpsons style of character reactions, in as much as there are none. If Homer is being addressed, if you watch a Disney movie and a character is being addressed, you'll see a lot of, kind of reactions that go on. So you painted exactly what's going on in that character's head.
Right.
And all you see from Homer or any of those characters, is a blank stare. So each member of the audience is going to imprint something different, like on what they think is going on in that head.
Right. Until you go in the side of his head, and there's a monkey with symbols.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, but it's and in a sense it's more real. It's like if you're talking to somebody, but before they have any reason to react, they're just going to sit there and there's going to be nothing going on. They're not going to be emoting all over the place. They're not going to be
Brian's
mugging.
Great for that, actually.
Yeah. He's you don't ever really know what's going on in his head.
But he's also very straightforward. He would literally sit there and say, yeah, right.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I think he helps to ground that show in a sense of reality at all times. Stewie's designing some weapon or a time machine, and you can have that kind of fun, but not without.
Yeah, you do need that one person who makes, in a weird way, makes it still the real world, who speaks through the eyes of the audience.
Yeah. For example, when you decide to execute one of the all-time great scenes, and now has become your unbelievably fun Emmy campaign, but you can't have Stewie beat the shit out of Chris.
Right.
You know what I mean? Brian is the foil for that.
Yeah.
Because when Brian winces and cries out in pain, you actually feel it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas Chris would be, oh, shut up, you idiot, type of thing.
It's got to be, again, it's got to be real. It's got to. When we did that scene, our goal was we wanted this to feel like Tony Soprano beat the shit out of somebody.
Yeah.
This should be
going back further. Jimmy Kahn with the trash can lid, right?
Exactly.
Going after Carlo.
Yeah. And it's that is something. Obviously, that's where animation, keeping it within the realm of reality, ironically only works for something like that in a medium that is removed from reality. I mean, if you watched Everybody Loves Raymond, and Raymond just punched Deborah as hard as he could in the face.
Doesn't have the same.
It'd be funny for like a minute, and then it would stop being funny.
And for that first minute,
my God, you'd be on the floor. You'd be like, finally,
right? Thank God. You know what I'm saying? A Republican woman.
Yeah, I know.
How about it?
Yep.
That's not an oxymoron at all. So then you decide to do the Emmy campaign, which is playing beautifully online, and so much so that I thought, well, let's go ahead and share my favorite one here today, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And let me know when you guys have that loaded up. Yep, they're good. All right, so we'll show it and then we'll talk about it afterwards. So this is a part of, how many did you do? 5 total? 4?
Yeah, we did. No, I think
4.
we did 6 of them, actually.
6.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take.
Stewie. Hey.
Hey there. So, you figured out who's got your Emmy vote for Best Comedy?
Oh, yeah, I was thinking about voting for Entourage.
Oh, really? Am I supposed to care about a guy who has everything?
Oh, it's a good show. It's a great inside look at Hollywood.
Oh, well, all right then. That's good, OJ. Yeah, that hurt? That hurt?
What the hell?
Yeah, that don't feel so good, does it? No, huh? Hug this out, bitch! Hug this out!
Oh my God!
That's a half piece, you know that? Where's Miami? You gonna give me Miami? Where's Miami, man? Where's Miami? Yeah, you're feel good? That feel good? Where's my Emmy, man? Where's my Emmy? You're voting for Family Guy. You hear me? You're voting for Family Guy.
You freaking psychopath!
It's Sex in the City with...
Sex in the City with chicks. For guys, yeah.
Yeah, what was it?
Sex in the City for guys. For men.
That's right.
With men. No, it was the, that's a hairpiece. That's the one that was a beautiful place you went to, and thank you.
Hey.
Yeah. Now, we didn't quite get to the Cleveland. Can you believe we've been talking for 2 hours, by the way?
It's been an absolute joy.
All right, well, that means you'll have to come back.
I'm back anytime you want me.
Awesome. Oh, well, that again also on HD.
On tape.
Not on film. So we'll come back and we'll talk about Cleveland. When does Cleveland debut?
Cleveland premieres September 27th.
All right, great. So please, I mean, first of all, the only question I did have about it was the decision-making process for choosing Cleveland as the first spin-off.
Yeah.
A Family Guy, when clearly so many people must have requested instead the Ginger Jew, Mort Goldman. The great Ginger Jew. So again, was that something that came from within the ranks, or was that the network's involvement?
We a lot of times we get asked, why Cleveland, why not Quagmire? Cleveland he has the heart to be able to sustain a half hour every week. Quagmire is just a goofy guy who likes to rape people.
Yeah,
I mean, that's,
clearly.
Yeah.
Which is funny. You can get away with it in small doses.
It's like we already have, 2.5 Men. We already got Charlie Sheen. We don't need another one of those. No, he's, by the way, a wonderful guy, and he has been in to do the show. And,
he has just a sense of humor that you can actually take that.
Yes, exactly. So it's mainly because he could have that moment at the end of a show where he can, be introspective and realize, and it's funny, the animated series is the only medium that's really left where you can have that kind of, heart kind of Full House kind of moment at the end of an episode. You just can't have that anymore on a live action sitcom. Right. It just doesn't work. It feels like something that's of the past and it's just too trite. But you still almost kind of need it on an animated show for some reason. It just gives the whole rest of the story something.
Yeah.
Gives it a backbone. And Quagmire it would ring false if he did that. I'm sorry I roofied your drink. I guess I've learned something this week. It's wrong to force yourself on women. And the sweet music playing in the background. You just wouldn't work.
Just that little fadeaway at the end of every show.
Yeah, if we did a Quagmire series, it would probably, at the very least, have to be on cable.
Yeah. At very least. Although, something to think about, buddy.
Yeah. Yep.
Come on, I'll be the wacky neighbor. I'll just come in every week and say, Nemo. Hey, Nemo. All right, one from the chat room as you gear up for your Larry King game, which you will play into your camera.
Right there.
This comes from the chat room, MacFarlane Fan 92. Does that ring any bells? Maybe this is a stalker. Seth, what advice can you give to someone who wants to study animation? You know what? I'm glad this came up because I really didn't touch on that in terms of touching the next generation and reaching back and helping out. And I know you speak at universities, Harvard included, and for someone who is just starting out, and then they've made a request that you say hello to MacFarlane Fan 92 as Stewie. But that'll leave to. But in terms of making a contribution,
there's a million ways to do it. It's trial and error. With me, it was just trial and error. It's learning the process. You do have to find a good school. I mean, that's the best thing you can do. Rhode Island School of Design was great. CalArts is great. I mean, there's a lot of art schools that now have gotten up to date with their animation programs. But it's just doing it. It's just doing as much of it as you can and sitting, even if it's with one of those little cheap video camera things, just experimenting with movement and experimenting with speeds of movement and what looks funny. And it's just the more you know about what's possible and how to do it, the more freedom you have to. I mean, it's the same as directing, I guess. It's the same as directing.
You just got to go out and do it.
Yeah. If you know what is possible and what you're capable of, then, you know...
Learn the tools first.
Yeah, yeah.
And how they work.
Yeah.
And how they can affect the visual.
Yeah.
And the image.
So there you are, MacFarlane fan 92.
Perfect. Yeah. I'm not sure she's breathing. All right. Well, we will look forward to. And when do the other guys come back? You said the 27th. Is that going to be the?
I think that's
the big night for all of them.
Premiere night.
Okay, that's premiere night.
I probably should know that for sure, but I don't.
No, I think it's best that you don't. Actually, it's much hipper and cool that you don't have any fucking clue.
That's great.
That's fantastic to me. Well, I'm assuming they'll call it an animation domination. Can't thank you enough, and you know, we're crazy huge devoted fans here, and wish you continued success, but also you know, continue to experiment and expand and reach out and get crazier, because your true fans are counting on that as well. And for the show here, it means a lot for you to stop by and share this kind of insight.
Anytime, man.
All right, cool. Thank you. All right, so you remember the rules for the Larry King game?
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. All right, let's see.
Whenever you're ready, no pressure.
Good evening, I'm Larry King, and whenever I go to bed each night, I sleep with a copy of Blue Crush between my ass cheeks. Why? So I can ensure that I'll have the kind of dreams I want. Dreams where Michelle Rodriguez kicks me around the goddamn studio and does what I call clipboarding my balls. Go!
Nice. Nice. That's the sort of commitment I asked for. Week in and week out, and it never happens.
Jesus.
Oh, buddy, no more calls. Pencils down. All right, thank you very much, sir.
All right.
We'll see you next time, and you'll find Jamie and I loitering on the scoring sound stage.
Anytime, come by.
And don't.
I'm always suggesting people come by, and nobody ever does. So.
All right. Well, we'll take you up on it. That I can promise you.
Cool.
All right. And you at home or at work or leisure, wherever you happen to be watching this particular show, those of you who choose to download, continue doing so, of course. Next week, someone who our guest today, Seth MacFarlane, believed in tremendously, and in fact executive produced a television show of his own, Rob Corddry, will be here next Sunday, and we hope you can join us then. Until then, as always, I wonder what the staff is up to. You know, they're out there launching the shuttle every week. Hey, look, I'm bored. Wait. Oh, nicely done. Did not see that coming.
Wow.
There's job security cracking wise right
what
there.
Balls.
Right? Of all the audacity, you go out and buy a bottle of booze and think you own the world, eh? Are there no workhouses? All right. And thanking all the staff here and Ustream, of course, as well as the fine folks at TriCaster, Jamie here and Dr. Chen and everybody contributing in the other room there, Senor Rotman as well, new to the staff. Until next week, as always, get out of my face.
He's all of the rainbows, but none of the rain. He's dry, but he's an alcoholic. He's hosting this train wreck again and again. When he wears a hat, he's carrying